Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Randy. How are you?
Good afternoon, Representative. How are you?
Doing well.
Rested and ready, I suppose.
Yes. Question one. So the governor closed the Capitol yesterday. What was the total cost of that action, both to taxpayers and the economy? I had a tractor-trailer truck that got grounded, could have made it to northeastern Pennsylvania and back before any inclement weather hit, and they couldn't go because of the governor's declaration. So do you know the cost?
I would have no idea, about incurred costs for the most part. I don't think there are any, but anecdotally, you've already provided an example of an instance where that may have been the case. We can go try to take a look at that along with, maybe the cost of snow removal efforts, if you will.
Well, we didn't have any snow here in the Capitol, so there wasn't any cost to snow removal. I'm just curious of the employees not being here.
Yeah,
what was that cost?
We didn't have snow here in the Capitol. Let's remember we have a workforce that travels.
Well, I know, but he closed the Capitol. We were here, but no one else of the executive branch was here, and they could have been in. I mean, it was a 12-hour closure without any snow. But we'll move on. So the plan to sell the farm show, when the bill becomes due, what is the total price tag that's going to be incurred by taxpayers for that?
Roughly speaking, about $13.5 million in annual payments over the 29-year lease.
How do you plan on paying for that?
Pardon?
How do you plan on paying for that?
Well, that will be, that will have to be funded within the
But we didn't do it. You did it. How are you funding that?
As the proposed.
Is it coming out of your budget?
There is no cost. Those payments begin in the 1920 fiscal year, not in the 18-19 fiscal year.
So you're going to pay that out of your budget next year?
That will have to be funded on.
Are you willing to pay that out of your budget next year?
It will have to be funded out of the general fund operating
budget. No. I don't think the taxpayers should be on the hook for your unilateral actions of selling the farm show.
Well, we've talked extensively throughout the hearing about the fact that those were not unilateral actions. They were done with statutory
pretty
authority.
Sure you did that by yourself. What state law asked you to sell the farm show?
And let me correct the record, if I may. There was a question earlier about whether we can undo the transaction.
Well, you signed a contract. You're going to get sued now because you unilaterally did it.
There is, after 10 years, there is a buyout clause if we want to end the transaction.
Are you going to buy it out with your appropriation?
That is
How about the governor's appropriation?
That is a decision that the General Assembly will have to make.
Well, it's your decision. You did it.
That's a decision.
We didn't do it.
That's a decision the General Assembly will have to make in 10 years. I'm not.
All right, let's move on.
I don't want to forecast whether I will be the budget secretary at that point, but I think I will not be.
All right. So the recently DHS, I think it was January, did a regulation to increase the MCO assessment, correct?
Correct.
Where is that money being spent? Because that was an increase.
That money will offset the costs of our capitation program going forward, so that taxpayers will not have to incur that additional cost.
Just MA capitation, or throughout all the capitated line items? Is
it's a single medical assistance capitation line item.
Just that one line item. Okay. And then there's some one-timers you have built in, about $825 million. Is that correct? Within the DHS budget? A GRT money sitting there, some other things. Is that correct?
There are multiple, a whole array of other, both whether they're federal funds or assessments or other revenue mechanisms to offset the cost of taxpayers.
There's some one-timers in there. There's a MCO GRT, if I'm not mistaken. Some other ones. Is that accurate within DHS?
There is a final year of gross receipts tax payments.
Okay.
We transitioned to a new system for the MCO assessment away.
So there's hangover, but is that going to a specific? My question is that going to a specific line item or multiple line items?
So you are correct in that case that revenue that we will receive in the 18-19 fiscal year won't recur.
All right. Final question. our House leadership, and many of them are on the record, said the current fiscal year budget closed out last year's budget, funds this year's budget, and will fund next year's budget without any new revenue. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I think we've proposed our budget plan for the 18-19 fiscal year as we believe it should be funded. It does include a proposed severance tax, but that's the only new revenue option beyond the, if you want to consider it, proposed municipal fee for state police services.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.